Oh, baby, are you really sure that I got the kind of loving that you've been looking for? Have you looked around? Matter of fact, forget that you can just stop looking around right now. I can see what I see, and you giving what is supposed to be given. Girl, you got an extraterrestrial love. Girl, you got a...
Pastor D,
Yes, sir.
how you doing?
Good, brother. How you doing?
Good, good. Glad to see you again.
Yes, sir.
Glad to be in the church this morning. Great service.
Amen.
Okay, so as I presented to you today, you are a recipient of our first ever Blackness Award.
Yes, sir.
It is truly an honor to present it to you.
Thank you.
This award means a lot to me because, one, we're celebrating people that I feel have not truly been appreciated for the hard work that they do within the local community and within the Black community. I believe this award is truly for the leaders, the real leaders who are on the ground doing the work, people who are not just writing a check and showing up to events, people who are mentoring, educating, teaching, truly leading our youth, our people. You have been someone that I truly admire, someone that from the day that I met you, that you have always walked within that.
Wow.
And it is a truly honor to give you this award.
Thank you, man.
How do you feel about the award?
I'm in awe. I'm grateful. Never expected it, but very, very grateful, man. It's my desire to serve, man, and to be an impact in the Black community is sincere. I was very blessed coming up. Although we grew up struggling, I had a lot of people from the church standpoint who were really mentors of mine, and really taught me about paying it forward. And this acknowledgement, man, is it really is humbling. It really is. And then be able to receive it from the people that God has blessed me to pastor. My mom being here, right? Like it's a pretty cool thing, man. It really is a pretty cool thing. So I'm honored, brother. Thank you.
Welcome, welcome. This month, we're celebrating Black history and love. You are an author of Black history in yourself, being the first of many things.
Yes, sir.
And you are a walking example of love, the way you love your family, you love your friends, you love your people, and you love the community.
Yes, sir.
So I wanted to take the time to allow people to truly get to know who you are.
Okay.
In that, I ask you, who is Darrick McGhee?
And the Williams brother had a song said, "I'm just a nobody, trying to tell everybody about somebody."
I love that
anybody.
song.
That's really how I feel, man. Like it's I am a dude, man, who is just undeservingly blessed in a major way. I can say I'm a husband, a father, and things of that nature, which I am very proud of, man. But just my previous pastor always talked about head scratching blessings, and I am an example of a person who's living a life of head scratching blessings. And so I'm just a dude trying to be available for God to use in every platform I'm blessed to be a part of. That's who I am.
Gotcha. Yeah. What would you say is your driving force to the man that you are? Because you've mentioned that your background, coming from where you come from, you had other options. You could have went down the wrong path. You could have did so many other things, but you've chosen to take up this mantle that you're on and become the man that you are. What is your driving force behind that?
Two people. My grandfather, my maternal grandfather, early McGhee Sr, was just, man, the model to me in a major way. Everywhere he was, I wanted to be. He wasn't, the most educated by way of advanced degrees, but he was a lover of one woman, had all his kids with my grandmother, had his mistakes and his flaws, brother, but he walked in the room, people took attention because of how he carried himself. And then my mom raised two boys. I'm the youngest of two boys, raised two boys by herself for the most part. And we struggled, man, in a major way. I watched my mom negotiate with our landlord. She didn't have enough money at the beginning of the month to pay the entire rent, how she negotiated. But she always believed in us and always pushed us and propelled us. And I remember praying a prayer when I was younger that, God, if you could please position me in a manner where I can help take care of my mom and my dad when I get older. And my dad at the time, we weren't even getting along as we do now, but my prayer. So those two really, it became a mission of mine not to go down the path that my neighborhood friends were going down. My brother and I were the only two of our old neighborhood that got out. And we were the two probably who shouldn't have got out because we had the least amount of resources and means everybody else did. My mom was just adamant, man. And so when I graduated from FAMU, December 15, 2000, I gave her the plaquette with the degree. That was a great moment for me because it was for me to put in her hands that her labor was not in vain. Jamel, I'm the first generation on my dad's side. I'm the first one ever go to college and graduate. And so there wasn't a blueprint laid out.
Yes.
And there were many days I thought about just walking away from school. It was very challenging. But I remember my mom, you know, just having to work to take care of her two boys. And so wanting more for us. And those two people, man. But I carry that McGhee last name with pride because of what my grandfather instilled in me. And so those two people are the driving forces and have been the driving forces of me getting to where I am. And then my wife and my children are the motivation to keep going. So I said this today, I named my son after me, and I want my son to always be proud to bear that name. I mean, the name has to mean something.
Yes.
And so, you know, pre and post, those work together to make me who I am.
That says a lot because, as I mentioned, this month we're talking about love.
Yeah.
So that mother's love of willingness to sacrifice and do what's necessary, not for the now, but for the future, for what she sees in you, is just truly the example of love, what it truly is. So now in your career, what was the driving force or motivated you to the career path that you've chosen?
It was all accidents. I did not plan on being in the political process, doing consulting work and lobbying and advising at all. I just took a job. My wife was a semester behind me in undergrad. I just took a job to pay bills, just wait on her to graduate. The intent was to move to Atlanta, was to get engaged and move to Atlanta. That was my plan, my intent. She got invited to be a part of an inaugural healthcare management program at FAMU. And with that invitation, required her to stay behind for 2 more years. At this point, we're engaged. So listen, stay. I'll just get a job, and that's what I did, man. And I didn't take anything seriously. I mean, I was working, but as far as like, I wasn't trying to make Tallahassee home. And she graduated in 2003 with her master's. And I said, wait 2 more years, give you a chance to get acclimated to your career, your degree. 2005 comes around. I'm ready to go. I guess it's time to do this. And she's like, we can't leave. And I asked her, give me one reason why. And she said, well, we're pregnant. I was like, that's a good reason.
That's a great reason.
And so when I knew that we were about to have a child, that's when I got serious about my career. I was already in the process of working in-house with some politics in the political process, but really became very committed to advancing it. And I think it's important to note that as a political consultant, as lobbying, I'm in a predominantly white male profession. So I didn't see a lot of me in the arena I was in. And so that blueprint also wasn't there. There were some, but we were like in the minority. And I just started taking an interest in it. God bless me with some great mentors along the way. I never foresaw my now back then. I never did. Nor did I plan for it that way. I just really wanted to be diligent. The scripture says in Colossians 3, chapter 3, verse 17, it says, whatsoever you do in word or in deed, do it all to the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. My commitment was, I just want to be a diligent worker, and God, whatever happens, happens. And God's beginning to catapult me, man, in major ways. But I would say, up to my own accord, it was all by accident. This was never the plan. And I look back on it now, man. That's why I'm always overwhelmed, because God has enabled me to be on platforms. Sometimes I'm sitting there, Jamel, thinking to myself, how did I get here? But that's what it was, man. This was never supposed to be the story I wrote for myself. And I'm grateful that God knows more and knows better, honestly, bro.
That is true.
Yeah.
That he does. I akin it to, for myself, I always say, I'm always trying to do my best to be my best.
Yeah, brother.
Everything that I do, no matter whether it's,
I love that.
Raising my nephew at work, dealing with family issues, even just going through trials and tribulations of my own.
Yeah.
I'm always trying to do my best to be my best.
I love that.
And I try to stick to that.
I love that.
It takes you far.
It takes you far.
It truly does. What is one of your biggest life goals?
One of my biggest life goals. So T.D. Jakes preached a sermon so many years ago, and he said that your blessing is your children's normal. And that was so impactful to me, man, because my children will never understand the struggle that their dad and their mom grew up having to deal with. My son, from the first time he was born, and my daughter, who's younger than him, they've always grown up in a two-parent household, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. One of my major goals, man, as I already aforementioned, is I want my daughter, who's 12, to see the way her father loves her mother and how he loves her, and not settle for anything less than that standard. I want my son to be proud to be a black man in America, with the name he has, but also know the motto I live by, man, which is man does not have a foot big enough to hold me down. I want my son to never settle, nor my daughter to ever settle for less than what's ordained for them. So my goal, man, really is to propel them further than wherever I end up. And because I've been blessed to be the first fruit of many things in my life and in my career, I'm having to basically set the blueprint, make the blueprint, and be a trendsetter. And that's challenging when you're the first fruit, right? You take most of the hits, but at the same point, I'm mindful of that. Scripture says a man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. So I'm foreseeing not only my kids, but my grandkids. And I want to make sure that they are able to go further than I have been able to. So that's a major driving goal. Secondly, I didn't grow up with, other than my grandparents, I didn't grow up with the motto of black love by way of with one woman. And I'm blessed to be in that standard now. And so that's another goal of mine, man, is to break the generational curse that overwhelmed our family, where you can love, wed, have children, all that with one woman. And God blessed me to do that with my college sweetheart. Those are goals, man. I don't people have goals that catapult as far as network, things of that nature. God is blessing in those regards. Don't get me wrong. Those are not goals of mine. I like what you said, man. I'm trying my best to be my best. And every day, one of my prayers every day, seriously, is, Lord, help me be better than I was. I read late last year Myron Rowe's book called The 2% Way.
I've heard of it.
I encourage anybody to read that. He talks about just getting 2% better every day, whatever it is, in work, whatever area you're in, getting 2% better every day. And he credits it to Mickey Andrews, the former defensive coordinator at Florida State, who he played up under, who that was his motto for the defense, was get 2% better on defense every day. And the book is so impactful because it's basically telling you, you can actually do incremental increases every single day. And that's what I try to do, man, is try to be better every day. Am I perfect? No, I'm not. But no longer trying to be a carbon copy of somebody else's original. And so those are the goals I have. And I'll leave everybody else up at other goals. Those are my goals. And people may say those are too easy. They're not as easy as people think they are. They're not. And so every single day making a commitment to try to get better and thinking about that. My son, who's 17, a junior in high school, my wife and I have been blessed to position him where whether he plays sports in college or decides to go off on his grades alone, he won't have to have the worries that I had when I was going to college, right? He won't have to wonder, is school paid for, is affordable, things of that nature. And so, God is blessing me to see that the labor is not in vain. But those are my goals, man.
Those are amazing goals. They are a testament of the man that you are, your character.
Thank you.
Because I truly believe that what a person desires is a reflection of what they value.
Yeah.
And that shows that you value family.
Yes, sir, bro.
And you value legacy.
Absolutely.
And you value your integrity.
Absolutely.
And that's, for me, that's a true mark of a real leader.
Wow. Thank you.
So I appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Standing on those things, definitely. Your impact.
Yeah.
Your impact. You've had a profound impact on the people within your community, people that you've worked with. As far as your impact on the world, do you have any goals or any desires when it comes to the greater picture?
Wow. So the greater picture for me, in all sincerity, is Matthew 5:16. Let your light so shine amongst men, that they may see your good works, glorify your Father which is in heaven. That's really my impact for the world, man, is that whatever setting and platform God blesses me to be in or on, that I'm able to reflect the light of Christ
Mm.
In those regards. And that's from a secular and a spiritual perspective, right? If I'm in a secular setting or spiritual setting, be reflective of that. Because I believe this: if I do it for his glory, he'll make it for my good. And I genuinely believe that. And so I've never, and I want to underline the word never, I never planned for, scheduled, or intended to be in the rooms I'm in. It was never that. Commitment I made to God is, Lord, wherever you take me, you can trust me there, and I will publicly and privately give glory to you. That's genuinely what it's been. And I've kept my promise to God, and I believe in return, God continues to trust me with other platforms. And so, to me, that goal is a recurring goal, and it's challenging because it's in the flesh of man. Lingers and desires the applause and the accolades and the headlines. God's also surrounded me, Jamel, with people who I've empowered to hold me accountable and keep me humble. All right, I don't find myself impressed by myself. And in the career that I have, you know, the more you're promoted by the blogs and by the reporters, the better it is for clientele and recognition. That's never been my desire, my intention, and I try to make that my intention now. But my goal, man, really is to be a reflective light, the glory of God in every setting. And as a result, God really has allowed me to be on platforms and in conversations with some major names, and because He trusts me that I won't make it about me. And so that's the goal, man. Is God, wherever you send me, that you can trust me and that I will give you the glory publicly and privately. And in turn, Lord, people's lives will be impacted. I'm intentional about mentorship. I'm intentional about being a blessing to other people. I never set out to make impact, though. That was never my intent. The impact has come because of the commitment I made to God. That's really what it came down to. It was never me seeking to impact people's lives like that. I wanted to be bring glory to God and be a blessing to people. And through that, I'm very genuine. I'm very real, very transparent, and each of those verbs have enabled me to be able to talk to from governors and sit privately with them and converse with them and pray with them, down to hood goons who literally are facing many years of incarceration. Because of the genuineness of who I try to be, I've been afforded to be in two different settings, having two different conversations, and having an impact. Because I didn't seek to make the impact. It's just me being who I am, and God trusted me in that regard, and we'll continue to do that.
That is something key, something that I've spent this past year learning more about myself and aligning who I am professionally and personally to where what you see is what you get.
That's it.
No matter what setting I'm in.
No matter what setting I'm in.
And I'm finding that is truly the key.
Yeah.
That is truly the key to you truly reaching your potential.
Correct.
Because everybody can see who you are.
That's right.
You're transparent.
That's
There's
right.
nothing to hide.
Yep.
And in today's age, that's very important.
Right.
Transparency is crucial.
That's right.
And when you're putting yourself out there in a public life, public eye, things of that nature. So that is, I commend that.
Thank you, sir.
You've accomplished a lot of things in your life. You've got accolades, you've been awarded, you've been praised, you've done many things. And what would you say is the most important or the most valued accomplishment that you've had thus far?
My marriage. I am blessed to be married to not only my college sweetheart, but my absolute best friend in the world. And we began, when I tell you, with nothing. I made 2 commitments to my wife, and I was courting her, as the older people would say. I made 2 commitments. The first commitment was, I will never cheat on you. Next commitment was, if you stick with me and believe in me, you'll get a great return on your investment. And brother, I made the first commitment not cheating on her when I didn't come from that example. And the second one, I didn't have anything but faith to believe I could manifest that, because I wasn't living in a good neighborhood. I didn't have a lot of money. I was a full-time college student and a full-time employee when I was in school. So I didn't have a lot. But that woman believed in me, man. I can't speak to a time in our 23 years of being together, 20 of those being married. I can't recall a time when she ever used her tongue to speak death to anything I was believing God for. And we've had to cry together, labor together, sit up late at night and talk through things. And she always told people that she loves the dreamer in me.
Yes, that she has.
She has seen and heard me talk about things I believe in God for. When God gave me the vision for this church, I knew I had a pastoral calling. I never foresaw church planning.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see that example either. But the blessing, man, is God ordained her for me and vice versa. And so that's one of, if not my greatest accomplishment, because again, other than my grandfather, I didn't grow up with the example that I have uncles and I had a father whom I love. I love all my dad and my uncles. They had a lot of children by different women. And I believe that could be done one way. And so that, and then man, just the second one would probably be equal is my children. Mm-hmm. Me being able to be an active, present father is a big deal for me. And my son, who is 17, still like hanging out with his dad. It's a big deal to me, right? Yes. My daughter, who is entering the teenage years, they can never speak to a time where daddy wasn't there. To me, those are the things, because from my upbringing, I longed for that and didn't have that. Mm-hmm. My mom did the best she could, and she was there. My mom only saw me play basketball one time in high school, one time, because literally she had to work. Mm-hmm. And I don't fault her for that. But those two things to me are important. That's why I try to publicly affirm my wife and children and privately. And I believe that their outward reflection when you see them is a complement of the inward representation. My wife and I love each other not because you see publicly, but privately, I'm the same person, mm-hmm. right? I don't try to be anybody that I'm not. It's exhausting, man, trying to be other people. It's exhausting trying to play multiple roles. Just who I am, man. Listen, I love people. I can hang around people. I'm a jokester. I don't take myself seriously, right? I am motivated off intellectual conversation. I love hearing people's whys, right? That's me. That's why I ask people, I meet people for the first time, I ask them, what's your why? That motivates me to hear people, what drives people. And so I've coined a saying of 3 depend on me. My wife and my 2 children depend upon me. And so they push me and propel me. And I feel the safest when I'm around them, mm-hmm. right? I don't have to hold my guard up and be on the fence when I'm around. I can just be myself. And it's exciting. And COVID help affirm something for me, Jamel, that my wife and I love and like each other still. And my children still love and like their dad. Us being together mean a lot to me. So to me, man, those are the big accomplishments and achievements that I'm even daily still refreshing.
Yeah. That's powerful.
Yeah, man.
That is very powerful. Sticking with you and your wife, what does love mean to you?
Love means, first of all, acceptance, right? We accepted each other, flaws and all. We accepted each other through fears and made a commitment that through hell or high water, we're going to stick it out. So love is acceptance. Love is sacrifice. Love is belief. I love the God in her. She loves the God in me. And to me, and my wife and I have this thing where we desire to be each other's greatest cheerleader. And so for me, love it's an action word, right? And so it's not just saying it, it's also displaying it. And I try to do that as often as I possibly can. That's not always about gifts, right? It's sometimes just, it's words of affirmation. It's quality time and things of that nature. But love's an action word. Mm-hmm. And we have to be careful not to allow the worldly definition of love to become our everyday definition. Again, my wife and I, when I do marital counseling, I always talk about find the flow of your marriage. We know what works for us, and it has worked for us. And there are times she and I'll sit and talk, and we'll both just have to say, remember when we all first began? Remember, we just had dreams. Look at what God has done, man. And love is sacrificial, right? And it's but also it is the motivating factor to me wanting even more for us. Yeah.
Beautiful example.
Thank you, brother.
Your wife.
Yes, sir.
College sweetheart.
Yeah, man.
You guys been together 23 years?
23 years together, 20 years of that
Married
marriage.
20 years. How did you come to know that she was the one?
One of the best questions I get asked. Thank you for asking that. I saw my wife years prior in church one Sunday, and I thought, man, she's very attractive. But she had this little boy sitting in her lap. And I remember thinking to myself, yeah, she's attractive, man, but nah, that ain't my thing. I later learned that it wasn't her son, it was her younger brother. And they're very close. And I just didn't know that. I just learned that through, like, years later, it was just in conversation I overheard. I realized that was her little brother. I went through a 1-year dating sabbatical. I just felt like I was tired of dating young ladies, and it ended up being, nothing coming out of it. I was in prayer one time. I felt God leading me on this dating sabbatical. So I did 1 year. I didn't date anybody. And I just spent time with me. And I learned through that 1 year dating sabbatical, man, I loved me, but I didn't like me. I didn't know who I was. I stayed in relationships. And sometimes you can be in relationships as distractions versus impact. And so that 1 year, man, I took myself out to dinner, went to the movies by myself, prayed. Because my belief was on the back end of this sabbatical, God was going to bless me with my wife. And I was still in college. But I didn't care about body counts, right? I mean, girls you can sleep with. I really wanted someone that I could spend the rest of my life with. I watched my grandparents' love for each other. I never saw that again in any other of my family members. And I wanted what they had. A year after the sabbatical was over, I was in church one evening. The Sunday before, we had a collegiate ministry meeting that Monday. That Sunday before, my godmom calls me and literally says these words: "The Lord told me to tell you your wife is right in front of you and you keep ignoring her." That was exactly what she said to me. I said, "Yes, ma'am." I hung up the phone with her. That next night was in a collegiate ministry meeting at our previous church where my wife was born and raised at. And brother, she was sitting in the corner on this white top, blue jeans, white shoes. I remember like yesterday. I felt like the whole room got empty. It was just her, and I locked in. The meeting was adjourned. I went up to her and was trying to have a conversation with her, and she was just not interested. Her sister, my sister-in-law, and I have been friends for way longer than I've known my wife. They were even sisters. But I was so, when I saw her, like, that's her. And this was years later after I had seen her that initial Sunday. I saw her that first time with that brother. I never saw her as my wife, so she was very attractive. This time I saw her as my wife. And so I became very committed to, and God confirmed that I was her. Started praying and pursuing, and she had no interest, man. She had no interest at all.
Made you work for it.
Hard. My sister-in-law helped me many times try to create conversation. My wife just didn't have interest, man. Her stepfather, who now with the Lord, was a minister. And so she watched her mom be married to a minister and just the toil. My wife made a commitment she was never going to date or marry a minister. And I was already in ministry. I got a ministry when I was in college. And so even she thought I was handsome. In fact, I was in ministry, had no interest. And over time, I feel like God softened her. And so I finally had a chance to talk to her one Sunday evening. It was the fourth Sunday in January. I walked up to her. She was sitting waiting on her sister in the car. I walked up to her and just said, thought she was very attractive. Asked her if I can get her phone number. She finally reluctantly gave me the number. And from that day forward, man, we've been together ever since. But here's what I will tell you. I didn't rush into marriage with her. What we made a commitment to is, let's build a friendship first. And so we built a friendship, and we talked every day, almost a lot of hours a day. I was a struggling college student. Her mom would bring her over to the house and cook for me and just love on me. And so we both had dreams and goals and aspirations. My wife would tell people she never thought she was going to get married. I hadn't planned on getting married till I was 30. I got married at 25. She was 23. And man, it was it. We had people in our family thought we were too young. That it was going to work out. Neither one of us come from the perfect examples of marriage.
Mm-hmm.
But brother, I knew she was the one. I knew what God told me, and no matter what we had to go through, and I'm gonna give you a secret, and then for the podcast, our previous pastor told me not to marry her.
Mm.
Like he told me not. He said, "Don't marry into that family." Was his exact words. But my godfather said, "Godson, I want you to obey whatever God's telling you to do."
Mm.
And God has a way of speaking for you and speak for yourself. And our relationship is a testament that I heard God clearly, and that God is still doing great things, man. And brother, my wife is such a blessing, man, such a blessing. I'm excited about just us, dude. We love hanging out with each other and just chilling, having fun, all that type of stuff, man. But it's a blessing. Yeah, bro.
There was something you said that I wanted to ask you about.
Okay.
And it was your pastor telling you that don't marry into that family.
Yeah.
But on the other side, you got God telling you, this is you.
Mm-hmm.
This is for you. This
Mm-hmm.
is your person. But you also said there was a time period where she was not even giving you the time of day.
Not time of day.
How was it for you knowing that God has told you this, that this is your woman, but she's not interested at all?
Mm-hmm.
How difficult was it for you to continue on the path of pursuing her?
Yeah, that's a great question. There were moments, man, where I got very discouraged. And I did something by accident that I ended up realizing it was God ordained. And what it was, man, I just said, Lord, I'm going to step out of the way and let you work on this.
Mm.
I'm going to allow you to work on her as I just try to pursue her. And that's why I said earlier, I believe God softened her, because every angle I took to try to get in, she blocked it.
Mm-hmm.
I later learned, though, that a lot of that was fear, because she had been wounded, right? And so she was afraid. My pastor's words was like water on the back of a duck. It didn't stick.
Mm-hmm.
I heard him, and I respect him to this day, but his words never was close to what God had said.
Mm-hmm.
My godmom, whom I know hears from God, when she called me, when we hung up that phone call, I was certain.
Mm-hmm.
I was certain, like there was no doubt about it, because I knew she heard from God, and then God will later confirm that. And so for me, everybody who tried to speak death or doubt, it didn't work in that regard. So although he said what he said, and he said it from a lens that wasn't anything I had to do with from a historical perspective, but I had to really back away and say, okay, God, I'm gonna tell you this. That's been my model going forward. And a lot of things God had me do. I literally, for example, when God gave me the vision to start Bible-based church, it was hard to swallow. That's not what I thought. And I had to back up.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Lord, you got to do this. And everything that I've been able to do, when people start doubting it, I know it's God. Right? And so sometimes it's some of the most influential people in my life have said things. I'm like, But I pride myself on being a man of prayer. And God's timing is perfect. And God never promised me I was gonna get married by a certain age. He just told me that's your wife. And so I was willing to wait, man. I locked in, willing to wait. But I also realized, like, Lord, there's something blocking the penetration that I need you to work on. And over time, God did. And so my wife will tell people that the beginning of our relationship was literally, I was just committed to a friendship, and let's see how this works out, that we could both heal. And we did, man. And God is blessed.
God has blessed. I love you too. How you interact with each other is, you can feel the genuine. You can feel the love.
Yes, sir.
And I love it. It's a beautiful example of Black love.
Yes, sir.
And I thank both of you. I truly praise God for being able to be in the room with you two, just to have that example, because speaking for me, that's not something that I have a great example of when it comes to love, relationship, a man and a woman, being married together and building a life together. That's not something that I have a lot of examples of. I've had previous mentors who they love their wife. They're truly committed to being a great husband, and I truly cherish them. But finding that example on a daily basis has been something that I haven't had.
Mm-hmm.
But as I come to church and I'm around you and I'm around your wife and around your family, and even I see you out together, I can, I think we've run into each other out in the public before, and it's just, you can see it, you can feel it.
Yeah, bro.
And I love it.
Yes, sir.
What is one of your greatest struggles?
I think a few of them. I struggled with success, because it's not what I set out for, nor sometimes do I believe I deserve it. So I struggle with success. I struggle with childhood traumas at times. I grew up in some very traumatic experiences, and so I struggle with forgiving myself of things that I felt like I should have done differently as a child, and I had to forgive myself because I was a child.
Yes.
I struggle with that. I struggle with living in moments. I'm always on to the next thing until I never really stop and sit in the moment and allow myself to enjoy that moment, or allow people to enjoy the moment. That I move on to the next thing. I struggle with that because I've been so driven for so long that pausing is wasted time. That's how I always felt. And so I'm learning. COVID really slowed me down and really try to stay in moments. I do therapy once a month. I have an awesome therapist, Dr. Percy Johnson, whom I love and I thank God for. And I was an anti-therapy dude, man. I was never going, especially as a black man, I'm never going to do therapy. I just pray about it, be done with it. The need became that. But he's really tried to teach me how to sit in moments. And me pausing in moments, I felt like was me seeking and enjoying the applause versus me. What he's trying to teach me is sitting in a moment allows you to really bask in the greatness of God. And so I struggle greatly with that, with just slowing down, man, and really enjoying it. And I don't want to be that person who looks back a year later and say, I wish I had right? I wish I had enjoyed more moments, spent more time. True story. Most of the awards I've ever received are in a box somewhere. I would not put them up. And part of it was, it reminded me of who wasn't there versus who was there. The other thing was, I never wanted to surround myself by things that were about me. And I slowly started allowing things to be put up because those things also tell a story.
They do.
Right. And people will ask, tell me about this award. And it gives you a chance to tell the story versus you making it about yourself. And so I've struggled majority of my life with attention in general. And so, and the blessing of having kids is they ask questions.
They do.
And they're asking the questions really has afforded me the opportunity to tell the stories, and then realize that when you don't tell those stories, you rob them of the great history and opportunities that can be built upon. And so I give God all the glory for the things he's done, but I try to now slow down, man, and really, really, really bask. And the example of Jesus was that way. Jesus, if you look at several times in scripture, Jesus would get away just to kind of still in the moment. And if Jesus can do that, why can't I? But I struggle with that, man. And and mainly again, childhood trauma, man. There are things that as a black man that we dealt with or we deal with that we can't verbalize in many settings that still torture us and traumatize us. And so struggle with that. And that's why I'm now a proponent of therapy, man. Black men ought to have a therapist.
Yes.
Not just your preacher or not just your pastor, but a therapist where you can actually just talk to somebody and be told, hey, man, you're not crazy. Hey, man, you're going to get through this. And it's been very helpful to me.
I like to think the way I kind of, because I wasn't a proponent of therapy myself until I came back from my first deployment and felt like I was losing it. I lost myself. I don't know what's going on. I'm barely sleeping. I'm going through all these different things. And one of my NCOs, go to mental health, go talk to, go talk to a counselor. And I went to mental health and just trying the things that they suggested and watching how it changed my life and changed my point of view and my perspective and talking about things that I had no idea that was affecting me.
Yeah, brother.
Just I was okay with it. I was fine. Life moved on, and talking with them about it, they bring it to the forefront that, hey, that particular instant, it's what's going on.
Yeah, bro.
And so I'm truly a proponent of therapy as well myself. And it's, as you mentioned, it is hard.
Yeah.
I'd say it's hard to be a Black man.
Yeah, bro. Yeah.
Not partly because of the color of our skin, but because of the role that we've had to play throughout history.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's beautiful that you're going to therapy even as a pastor. You lead a multitude of people. And you're humble enough to say, hey, I need help.
I want to say, man, I want to give a shout out to a dear brother, John Brown. John's a dear brother of mine. John began years ago this conversation led into a podcast called Black Men's Health, where he's committed to us looking at it from the Black male perspective. That's mental health, physical health, so on and so forth. We had a conversation when he shared with me the vision and the dream of it. Black men don't go get themselves physically checked out every year. We don't do wellness checks, all those type of things we don't do. And there's a lot of pride, right? And when I go get my wellness check every year, I have to go through a battery of tests because of my family's history on both sides. And those became motivators for me on what I eat, how I work out, all those type of things. Because, Jamel, the thing I say to myself, and I say to my pastoral friends who I'm really close with, is I don't want my health to be the reason why I can't do what God wants me to do. I grew up, man, where, my first church growing up, the pastor was suffering from cancer and was still preaching every Sunday. All he knew how to do was preach. Church I grew up in Los Angeles, he was senile and hard of hearing and was still preaching. Where at Tabernacle, Pastor Walker's in his 70s, still going strong and effective. But all of them, I watched all of them go through the decline in health and still pushing themselves. And I've watched pastors be obese, still preaching, and wheezing as they're preaching. And to me, I don't want to be that example where you're preaching an awesome text of hope, but also displaying this lack of discipline. At the same point, I had to accept the fact of God has blessed you to be influential. You got to be an example, right? You got to go do these things and take care of yourself. And you say 3 depend upon me. That's not just in financial resources. That's also in life. And so, you got to do all you can to make sure that you are present with your wife and your kids. And so I've been taking care of my physical health, taking care of, financial health, all that. And the one thing I wasn't doing was my mental, right? And I remember watching an interview that Marshawn Lynch did.
Yes.
And he talked about taking care of your mental. He said, you have any advice for young players coming in? He said, take care of your chicken, take care of your mental. And I thought that was so impactful, man, because, this brother's playing at an elite level, a National Football League, making a lot of money in endorsements and in NFL contracts. And his advice was so simple, yet so impactful. Take care of your money, take care of your mental. And I was like, man, that's amazing. And so I think about that, man, because, we sometimes look at somebody who we deem to be successful in a worldly standpoint, not realizing that those people can't sleep at night, that they are miserable. Before Michael Jackson died, man, he was taking pills to get up in the morning and pills to go to bed at night, right? But he was internationally known, but he was internally miserable. And that's the thing about mental health counseling and treatment and just mental health conversations. It helps you really look inward and deal with that. And through that, I realized there were things in my life I had never dealt with.
Yes.
Just kind of kept suppressing it. And I've always said to people, anything that you suppress becomes volcanic. Eventually, you're gonna have an eruption.
Yes.
And things started erupting in my life because I just wasn't dealing with them. And so I started telling people at the church, man, that distance does not equate to deliverance, nor does denial equate to deliverance. You can't keep denying it happened. Think you're going to go away. Eventually, it's going to come up. It's going to wreak havoc. And I started seeing things wreaking havoc in my marriage because I wasn't dealing with things. And so, man, my brother John Brown, man, that conversation. And so now me and 4 of my closest pastoral friends in the world, we commit to having those conversations with each other, not as Pastor McGhee or then Pastor, just as Darrick, and then by their first names, checking on each other. And how you doing? How things going? How's your marriage? How's your kids? You know, it's being seen by your name, not by your title.
Yes.
Right. Those things are important.
Yes. That is important, because even with all the titles, you're still you.
Yeah,
you're
bro.
still a human being. You're
Yeah.
still a man.
Yeah.
You have emotions. You have feelings. You deal with things. You go through things.
Correct.
And people often forget that when they constantly see you in your titles.
Yeah.
You know, we do it with our celebrities.
Yeah, we do.
We see them as the great Beyonce, great Jay-Z, and don't realize that those are actual people who have real lives.
Correct.
And they go through things. So yeah, that is great. If you had anything to give to the people, any words of encouragement, any words of wisdom, to not only help them live a happier life, to be more at peace, and to bring life into perspective, into a good perspective for them, what would it be?
I would say 2 things. The first thing I would say is be the true you, not the you everybody else says you are. I think a lot of people struggle, and I did this. You struggle with who you really are because everybody else is trying to tell you who you are. And so it's dangerous because, like I said earlier, you become a carbon copy of somebody's original. And there are people who've lived their lives for years as somebody's carbon copy. But the first thing I would say, man, encourage people is you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and God has equipped you that the world needs you, the real you. It may not be a lot of people, that at least one person needs the real you that's going to encourage them. The second thing I would say is, and I really believe this, that God can use your mess and give you a message out of it. A lot of things that I'm blessed to talk about now in stages are messes of my life that God has made me a messenger of. Whether it's childhood trauma, whether it's domestic violence, whether it's Black entrepreneurship, whatever it may be, I'm transparently sharing things. Because there are some people who meet you now don't know you're then, right? So they don't know how you got to where you are.
Yes.
And so, some people will judge your now, some people will applaud your now, not even realizing, but you had the labor to get there. You mentioned about coming back from your first deployment and how you felt. I think about things in my life, man, where I didn't see this. Again, in my neighborhood, my brother and I were only 2 that got in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
If I had more time, I would share stories where were not for the hand of God sparing our lives, we would have been prematurely killed. Grew up in a gang-infested neighborhood. And so I will tell people that the world needs you. Somebody needs you in a major, major way. And I want to give hope to people that God makes no accidents. Even if your mom and dad don't work out, they only worked out to get together to make you. That was on purpose. That was ordained. On purpose. It was ordained, right? And I had to grow to believe that, but I do believe that. Yes. And so I want to encourage all those who are listening that God can use anybody, and you got to just be willing. So when you asked me earlier about the award, man, bringing that back in, it means more to me than I probably realize now. Also, it means more to me because it's from a Black man to another Black man, right? And that means a lot to me that Black men can compliment and encourage each other. So, brother, I'm honored. I'm like James Brown, and I'm black and I'm proud. So people all the time, man, I wake up and go to bed black. No matter what your political ideology is, and I'm gonna always be pro-black. Always look out for, or try to be a voice in the room for black.
Yes.
And make sure that my blackness, our blackness, isn't ignored. Because you can't talk about American history and not bring up black history.
You cannot.
Right? We matter. And our impact and our fingerprints are everywhere, and you can't erase that.
You cannot.
Yeah.
Well, Pastor D, it's been a true pleasure.
Yes, sir, man.
Having this conversation with you.
Yes, sir, brother.
You are our
man.
February 2023 You Solutions BLACKNESS Award recipient. I am truly honored to give it to you. There is no one else that at this time that I felt deserved that award more than you.
Yes, sir, brother.
Truly a pleasure.
My pleasure, brother. Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Very honored.
Love you.
Love you as well, brother.
And I hope you enjoy it.
I will. I believe that.
Oh, baby. Are you really sure that I got the kind of loving that you've been looking for? Have you looked around? Matter of fact, forget that, you can just stop looking around right now. I can see what I see, and you giving what is supposed to be given. Girl, you got an extraterrestrial love. Girl, you got a